There comes an inevitable moment in every seeker's journey, a point where life forces you to stop and face something almost no one wants to admit. Reality doesn't transform by the amount of things you do, but by the state you sustain while doing them. You can wake up early, meditate, repeat affirmations, write down goals, push yourself to exhaustion. But if your inner state still carries fear, insecurity, or doubt, the quantum field will respond exactly to that. Think of someone who spent years in this dynamic. They chased courses, read every book, applied every foolproof technique. They thought they were on the right track because they were doing a lot. But their life was an endless loop. Small wins, big frustrations, and the constant feeling that something was always missing. Until one day, almost without realizing it, they changed one single thing. They stopped trying to force change. Not because they gave up, but because they finally understood they needed to be before they could have. They dropped the weight of the race and began to inhabit the state they desired, as if it were already real. And it was in that moment of silence and coherence that everything began to reorganize. Bruce Lipton reminds us that our cells don't live in isolation. They constantly respond to the emotional environment we create. Each repeated emotion sends a chemical and electrical signal that shapes the body, which in turn shapes the field. If that environment is one of anxiety, the body learns to survive in it, and the field reflects more circumstances to keep that pattern alive. Joe Dispenza takes it further. Your body is an electromagnetic antenna transmitting a signal 24 hours a day. You don't consciously turn this signal on and off. It's maintained by what you feel automatically. And here's the truth most people can't bear to hear. The quantum field doesn't read your words, your goal lists, or your strategic plans. It reads your resting frequency. That vibration you sustain when you're not performing, when you're not trying to convince anyone, not even yourself. It's this silent signature that builds day after day the environment you live in. In this video, we're going to expose the hidden contradiction that keeps so many people stuck in old realities, even while being experts in manifestation. More than that, you'll learn how to dissolve that inner noise, how to align your baseline state so completely that the field has no choice but to reflect exactly who you decide to be. And when that happens, you no longer have to chase the reality you desire. It comes to you because energetically, you're already there. The quantum field isn't interested in the words you speak or the phrases you write over and over. It responds to who you are when no one is watching, when there's no effort to appear a certain way, when the mask falls and all that's left is the pure state you sustain in your body. Techniques, affirmations, and visualizations only work if they carry the vibrational seal of inner truth. Otherwise, they become nothing but noise, like a poorly tuned song on a radio station. In physics, we know that frequency can't be fooled. You can recite, "I am abundant," 1,000 times a day, but if deep in your chest there's still the weight of scarcity, that's the signal the field picks up and returns. The universe doesn't translate your vocabulary, it translates your coherence. Misaligned emotion is like trying to plant a seed in soil still choked with weeds. The potential is there, but there's no space for it to grow. What the field reads is the sum of your recurring thoughts, dominant emotions, and body posture. It's your vibrational package, a code you transmit 24 hours a day, whether you're aware of it or not. When that code is stable, circumstances begin to rearrange themselves to match what you sustain. When it's unstable, life becomes a chaotic reflection of that instability. That's why true fluency in the language of the field doesn't come from the intellect, but from emotional consistency. It's not about saying "I am" until you believe it. It's about feeling "I am" until no doubt remains. When your entire body begins to vibrate with the new identity, reality has no choice but to respond on the same frequency. You can declare to the world and to yourself that you're ready to receive, but the quantum field isn't impressed by speeches. It notices what you transmit in silence. Often the contradiction lies right there. The mouth says "I am prosperous," but the body carries the chronic tension of someone living on high alert, fearing the next setback. This gap between what is spoken and what is emitted creates noise that blocks the materialization of what you desire. This internal conflict isn't intentional. It's the result of years of conditioning. From an early age, we learn to project an image, even when we don't feel it. We develop the habit of acting as if we've already achieved something, yet internally we continue to vibrate insecurity, doubt, and lack. The field reads this dissonance as a mixed request and responds by keeping life in a state of almost, of unfulfilled promise. The invisible contradiction is, in fact, a defense mechanism of the subconscious. It keeps you tied to the familiar because it believes that's safer. So even when you try to change, your energy continues to feed the same frequency from the past. The internal language that still repeats, "It's not possible, this isn't for me," seeps into every cell and ends up being more powerful than any conscious intention. Breaking this cycle requires more than words or actions. It demands real alignment, where thought, emotion, and body become a single coherent signal. When there are no more gaps between what you say and what you feel, the field finds no noise to interpret, and manifestation stops being a struggle and becomes an inevitable consequence. We live in a culture that glorifies constant action. We believe that if we're not always doing something, we're falling behind. This conditioning creates the illusion that constant movement is the key to manifesting what we want. But in the quantum field, the amount of action doesn't equal the strength of the signal. It's possible to work day and night and still not move a single atom toward the reality you want to live. Excessive effort carries a hidden vibration, desperation. When we act from a place of lack, we transmit to the field the message that we still are not what we seek. Each frantic attempt to reach something becomes paradoxically vibrational proof that it's absent. The universe responds not with the results we hope for, but with more experiences that confirm that absence. Magnetism is different. Magnetism happens when your inner state is so coherent with what you desire that every action comes from a place of completeness, not from lack. In that state, a single gesture, made with clarity and presence, is more powerful than 100 anxious attempts. It's like throwing a stone into a calm lake. The impact is clear, and the ripples travel far. The mistake of confusing movement with magnetism keeps many people stuck in cycles of exhaustion without results. True transformation happens when action is a consequence of vibration, not an attempt to make up for the lack of it. When you shift your focus from doing to have to being to attract, you discover that less can indeed be much more, as long as that less is done with total energetic coherence. There is a subtle, almost imperceptible moment when you realize you no longer need to perform for yourself or for the world. Up until that point, many of your actions feel like performances. Smiling when you want to cry, appearing confident when you're afraid, showing faith while secretly doubting inside. This theater drains your energy and keeps your vibration trapped in the contrast between what you feel and what you display. The moment you stop performing is not a dramatic act, but a silent surrender. It's when you understand that you don't need to convince anyone, not even the universe, that you're ready for change. You simply live as if you already are the version you desire, without the need to prove or announce it. There's no forced effort, only naturalness. Stopping the performance is allowing your energy to speak for you. It's letting the coherence between what you feel, think, and do become so solid that anyone who steps into your field senses that stability, even without you saying a word. It's at this point that manifestation stops being a future goal and begins to turn into an inevitable reflection. This state doesn't come from secret techniques or more sophisticated strategies. It emerges from releasing the need for recognition, validation, or haste. It's the deep understanding that life isn't built to impress, but to align. And when that alignment happens, the quantum field reorganizes reality to sustain what you have become. The body is far more than a physical vessel. It is a living repository of frequencies. Every emotion you repeat, every thought you feed, sends chemical and electrical signals that shape your biology. Over time, these repetitions turn into a frequency code that the quantum field recognizes as your identity. It's as if the universe reads your inner state as a vibrational address, and from it, sends back matching responses. When you remain in emotional states of fear, scarcity, or insecurity, that energetic signature strengthens. Even if your words express confidence or abundance, the field still responds to the dominant frequency your body is transmitting. That's why changing your life requires more than repeating affirmations. It requires changing the internal state you live in daily. This coding is malleable, but it demands conscious repetition in the opposite direction. By practicing emotions that reflect the life you want, such as gratitude, peace, or certainty, you send new signals to your nervous system. Over time, those signals stop being just intentional practices and become automatic reactions, replacing the old pattern. The most powerful part of this understanding is realizing that the leap doesn't come from what you do occasionally, but from what you sustain daily. Every breath, every thought, every conscious gesture rewrites your frequency code. And when that code changes, it's not you chasing the new reality. It's the new reality that begins to find you. Desire is a powerful engine, but in the quantum field, it carries an invisible detail, the vibration behind it. When you want something with the feeling of, "I still don't have it," the signal you send to the universe is precisely one of absence. And the field, faithful to the frequency it receives, responds by amplifying that distance. This is why so many people, even deeply wanting something, remain in the same reality, because their wanting is soaked in lack. The more you chase, the more you reinforce the perception that you're far away. It's like running toward the horizon. No matter how fast you go, it never gets closer. In quantum physics, this means you keep your consciousness locked in a timeline where the object of your desire is always in the future, never in the present. The field doesn't deliver through effort, but through resonance with the desired reality now. The key is to reverse the game. Instead of seeking as someone who needs, act as someone who already lives it. This doesn't mean ignoring your current reality, but feeling and sustaining internally the state you would have if you were already in the desired scenario. When the body consistently experiences that emotion, the field recognizes it as your new signature and begins reorganizing circumstances to reflect that state. Here lies the paradox. When you stop wanting because you already feel you have it, the universe moves. It is in the abandonment of anxious pursuit and the adoption of silent certainty that the leap happens. Wanting dissolves, the frequency aligns, and reality responds, not as a reward, but as the inevitable consequence of who you've become. The difference between manifesting and merely imagining lies in the depth with which the body believes what the mind creates. Pretending you already are, when deep down you know you're acting, produces a weak, unstable, and inconsistent signal. The quantum field is not fooled. It doesn't respond to mental performance, but to the authentic emotional experience the body sustains. True vibrational rehearsal is the one that activates the internal chemistry corresponding to the desired state. It's feeling in your body the lightness, safety, or joy as if it were already part of your current reality. This practice goes far beyond words and images. It rewires neural circuits, modifies hormonal chemistry, and installs the new frequency into your energy field. When you repeat this inner experience consistently, the body begins to accept it as familiar. And that's when the leap happens. The nervous system stops firing automatic responses of the old you and starts acting as if you were already in the new timeline. At that moment, there's no separation between imagining and living. For your biology, it's all already real. The mistake many make is turning this practice into yet another checklist item without genuine emotion. But the field only responds when there's coherence between intention and feeling. Vibrational rehearsal is not thinking about what you want. It's deeply feeling as if it's already part of you, until there's no more room for doubt, only for the natural expression of this new state. Just as you care for your body with physical hygiene habits, your energy also needs constant maintenance. The vibrational state you sustain throughout the day is influenced by everything you consume. Environments, music, conversations, thoughts, and even small decisions that seem irrelevant. Each element either strengthens or weakens the field you are transmitting. Practicing energetic hygiene means consciously choosing what will feed your frequency. This means being mindful of the spaces you enter and the people you interact with, but also paying attention to the internal dialogue you maintain. What you consume through your senses becomes the raw material of your vibration. This practice is not about living in isolation or avoiding challenges. It's about being intentional with what you allow into your field. A simple adjustment, like replacing a song that reinforces painful memories with one that expands your energy, or exchanging complaint-filled conversations for constructive dialogue, already begins to recalibrate your signal. When energetic hygiene becomes a habit, you stop oscillating between contradictory frequencies and keep your field more stable. It's this stability that allows the new state to consolidate, preventing old patterns from finding space to reinstall themselves. The quantum field responds to consistency, not occasional effort. In the fast-paced flow of daily life, it's easy to get lost in automatic reactions. Every time you unconsciously react to a trigger, whether a comment, a piece of news, or a memory, you temporarily return to the old vibration. The conscious pause is the antidote to this. It's the moment when you interrupt the impulse to respond and deliberately choose which frequency you want to sustain. This pause doesn't need to be long. Sometimes just a few seconds of deep breathing are enough to interrupt the emotional circuit and prevent the body from releasing the chemistry of the past. It's like pressing the reset button before an old program starts running again. By doing this, you maintain the stability of the signal you want to transmit to the field. The silence the pause creates is more than the absence of sound. It is space for internal reorganization. In that interval, the mind stops feeding old narratives, and the body reconnects with the feeling you want to expand. This simple choice, repeated several times a day, is enough to keep the old timeline from regaining strength. Over time, the pause stops being an effort and becomes a natural response. You realize you don't need to engage in every emotional battle the world presents. And this conscious choice is one of the most powerful ways to protect the frequency you are building. When you decide to change internally, you will inevitably begin to notice subtle invitations to return to the old pattern. It might be a conversation filled with complaints, a habit that always brings temporary comfort, or even a thought that shows up as if it's just passing through. Becoming unavailable to these frequencies means no longer offering them your body, attention, and energy, even if they still feel familiar or comfortable. This is not about maintaining a high vibration all the time, which is unrealistic and even exhausting. It's about having the clarity to recognize when something no longer aligns with the identity you are choosing. It's like a host who keeps the door closed to visitors that no longer add anything to this new phase of life. This stance creates an energetic filter that preserves your internal state. When you become unavailable to what no longer resonates, the field perceives your coherence, and that coherence is interpreted as a clear signal that you are ready to sustain the new timeline. People, opportunities, and even different thoughts begin to align, not by coincidence, but because you stopped feeding what was already out of alignment. Over time, you no longer need to resist these frequencies. They simply stop looking for you. The energy that was once spent on repetitive cycles is now freed to create, expand, and live more lightly. It's the moment you realize you're not just trying to change, you already have. Bruce Lipton reminds us that biology doesn't change through sporadic effort, but through sustained perception, day after day. It's not what you do for a few minutes in a morning ritual that transforms your reality. It's the state you maintain while you live, work, talk, and breathe. That is the state that shapes the chemistry of your cells and sends the most consistent signal to the field. Joe Dispenza reinforces that when intention is clear and emotion is elevated, the quantum field has no choice but to respond. But this formula only works when there is coherence. It's no use wanting something intensely if your body is saturated with the opposite emotion. That's why, when you become the signal, there is no negotiation. The field mirrors exactly what you are, not what you pretend to be. The leap doesn't happen because you convinced the universe, but because you became so internally congruent that the new reality no longer needs to be chased. It simply is. At this point, you realize you're not manifesting anything, but simply allowing what already exists in potential to collapse into your experience. If you want to anchor this decision right now, declare to yourself, or even in the comments, "I am the signal." Not as an empty mantra, but as an energetic commitment to live in coherence with the frequency you wish to expand. When this phrase stops being an intention and becomes your nature, the quantum field will respond, and nothing will be able to stop it.